Thank you. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome. So happy to see you and happy Thursday. Can't believe we're almost at the end of the week already and almost at the end of June, which is crazy to think because I feel like summer just started. But thank you for joining. So as we've got some grantees who are still kind of making their way into the meeting, I'm going to start off with just a couple of quick announcements here, really for our design grantees prior to getting started with our session. So again, just for design grantees. So throughout a lot of the progress meetings over the last couple of months and still currently right now, we are understanding that there's quite a few delays happening at the USDOL right now, just based on internal shifts happening. I understand there's been a new state director who's taken a new role. So really just something we want to put out there to recommend. If you are a design grantee and you are still working through the process of designing your ECE wrap and working on submitting paperwork to get registered with the USDOL, we are recommending, based on the grant end date of 7/31, to try to submit for registration by June 30th. I know that's next week, and if it's not doable, completely understand, but just wanted to put it out there just because we have had some significant delays, even with some grantees who have already submitted and are still waiting approval, which has taken a little bit longer than we anticipated. So I just want to put that out there. If you have any more questions or need further clarification about that, you are welcome to reach out to our team also. The other quick announcement I have, again, for design grantees is just an update for the Scaling Up Early Care and Education Registered Apprenticeship in 8 Michigan Regions grant. You all are aware of that. We've received some letters of commitment or acknowledgments of application. I just want to let you know that prior to the end of this month, you will be receiving an email including the RFP as well as the information that pertains to the application process for that. So just keep an eye out for that. So really just keeping that June 30th date in mind, you should be receiving both of those pieces of information. All right, so we can jump into going through our agenda here. We are going to take some time and do a quick small group breakout. Following that, we will come back and do a whole group share out where we can further discuss. And then in a little bit here, we will be having the Early Childhood Workforce Connector joining us for a presentation on the power of connecting with the workforce system for ECE wraps. So should be a great presentation. We've been using them as a valuable resource. They also work with some of our grantees on a one-on-one basis as well. So I'm excited to welcome them here later during this session. So let's just go ahead and jump into it and get started unless anybody has any questions currently. If not, so the small group breakouts, we have been talking thoroughly about the importance of apprenticeship partnership and what that means and how to really continue the apprenticeship partnership that you've already created. So what we'll do is your partnership should really be something that remains embedded beyond funding cycles. So even if you don't have the funding, specifically from ECIC, or maybe you're working with other funding, just to continue that partnership and working together to keep the work going. So we've created small groups based on 2 to 3 of your organizations that are in relationship or in relation closest to your region. So those that are closest to you, you'll either have one other organization or up to 2. These are people that really could be a part of your apprenticeship partnership if they aren't already, and maybe something to consider as we continue moving forward. During your small group, we're going to have you reflect on the question of what are your next steps with your apprenticeship partnership. So if this is something that's been in discussion, for those of you who may be applying for the next round of funding, for those of you who may have gotten funding from the SAE grant or other varieties of funding, what's the next steps? What do you see happening? What do you feel like would be really beneficial? Couple of examples to ponder. Who are you using for your RTI providers? Where is your organization heading in terms of continuing this work beyond the end of this current grant period? Or how are you approaching ECE wrap integration into the other wraps that you might already support? So I want you to take about 20 minutes in your small group. If you could please identify a recorder during that time. and to come up with 2 takeaways that your group would be happy to share that reporter could share out to the whole group when we come back. I'll have Nicole enter this information into the chat just so you have it as you go into your breakouts. But we are going to send you off. And again, you've got about 20 minutes. Just let us know if you have any questions in the chat while you're gone. Thank you. All right, welcome back, everybody. If anyone is still joining, that is completely fine. I hope you all took away some valuable and collaborative conversation. We're going to take a few minutes to do just a whole group share out, just to share some key takeaways that you and your group discussed. We'll go through each room. Everybody will have, well, not everybody, each room will have about a minute just to share those couple of takeaways that you plan to implement as you continue your apprenticeship partnership. So if I can have room 1 start, whoever was your reporter.
Yep. Hi, this is Kelly Tang. We talked a little bit about the couple people in our group. One is working on just kind of finding some instructors for future cohorts and working through that. There was also some discussion around really moving some of that learning in person, that the discussions are just a lot more valuable for the in-person. So, still offering some of those virtual, but the more of a hybrid or in-person is more beneficial. And then also there was some talk about a Spanish CDA cohort. So some translating that's taking place, and then some that's like 100%. And then from my perspective with building our apprenticeship, so we're very close to having ours registered and ready to go, just landing on some training providers. And for us, sustaining the program in the future, West Michigan Works, we hold the standards right now to 42 different apprenticeship occupations. So we're just really looking to bring it kind of under our standards the way that we have other programs, and kind of give it that same attention to detail as it's a new program. And we know that there's a lot more hand holding and some things that go into pilot programs. And so really, hold it close for the first year or so, and then hopefully it'll kind of take off from there. So
Wonderful.
That's kind of it for us.
Thank you so much for sharing, Kelly. Really appreciate it. All right, how about room 2?
You're going to have to remind me, were we room 2?
Let's see. Room 2 was Southwest Childcare Resources and
That's
Capital
us.
Area Michigan Works.
Yes, that is in fact us. Okay.
Thank you.
No problem here, which means I got to find my notes. Oh no, what happened to my notes? There they are. So we had 2 different organizations in 2 different places in our group. We had, of course, Capital Area Michigan Works. We're a part of the design grant. So we're just, we're in the process, as we say, of reappropriating everything as we put our cart before the horse and are trying to go backward at this point, trying to reset that up. So part of our design grant for our next steps has to do with really solidifying the 3 apprenticeships that we've been working on with the 3 businesses that we have identified. So they are in the process of nailing down with their staff how they want that to look. Our apprenticeship coordinator has been working with those applications, and we'll be submitting them. We're going to guess maybe in about a month. And then, of course, we'll just have to wait for those responses from the state of Michigan, whether they will approve or whether they're not going to approve from our state rep. The Southwest Child Care Resources, though, they're at a different place. They are in a scale-up grant and out in Southeast out of Portage, Michigan. And in their situation, they went from having 1 county with an apprenticeship into 7 additional counties. So that expansion into those 7 counties, they've had to incorporate 2 success coordinators into handling the case management portion of those caseloads, and making sure that their cohorts are starting regularly and running simultaneously, so the instructors and the caseloads run concurrently. And in their next steps for their particular program is going to be really focusing on that mentorship piece, because they want to make sure that that is robust for those students who are coming through those apprenticeships, so that they've got exactly what they need in order to be successful.
Thank you, Erin. I appreciate you sharing out for your group. All right, how about room 3?
I think that was us. Tell me if I'm wrong.
You are correct. Thanks, Beth.
Okay. So we had Focus Hope, the Child Care Network, and Oakland County, Michigan Works in our group. I think that the common takeaways were a concern about the partners in terms of our training. And Carla was saying with the Child Care Network that they are working on getting an articulation agreement with a community college so that the training that the Child Care Network is doing will count toward community college credits, which I thought was amazing and never something I had considered as a possibility before. So that was wonderful to hear. And Oakland County, Michigan Works, Liz at Oakland County, Michigan Works was saying that she has found that, or heard from Oakland Community College, that they will offer 12 credit hours for those that have their CDA, which I also thought was amazing. And, we're basically in terms of other next steps, we're the Oakland County, Michigan Works and the Child Care Network are both sort of fine tuning their program at this point. They both have other funding for this that requires them to like start training people. So they are in the Child Care Network has already got their apprenticeship, so they're trying to start. They just started another group and have another one coming up in October. And Oakland County, Michigan Works has not got their approved apprenticeship yet, but they're sort of recruiting people right now with the expectation that they start this fall.
Awesome. Thank you, Beth. Perfect. Okay, and room 4?
I think I'm room 4.
Thanks, Lynn.
So we based our conversation basically around the question and the examples. So we kind of answered them each individually as we went on. So for me and Julie, we have a very rural area. Not a lot of stuff happening around here. Not many college locations that are very close to us. So we use a lot of our online RTI providers when it comes to that, and it really provides a good thing for our childcare providers in the area because a lot of them want to support their apprentices and make sure that they get back and forth to school and pay for
Come on,
their
get down. Get down.
gas and stuff like that.
Daddy will be home soon. I'll let you out.
And
Daddy will be
so with that being said, the organizations as us, sorry, that completely threw me for a loop, but our organizations are continuing to sign on childcare apprenticeships with that. Our recent setbacks, I would say, we had a conversation with the state apprenticeship office and they said something about, we're going to move away from competency based and go to time based, and that really set us back in our thinking. So I know us as a Michigan Works, we kind of backpedaled a little bit and redid our paperwork, and we resubmitted for that time based apprenticeship. So here in July, we're looking at my specific Michigan Works, we're looking to sign on at least 5 providers. So we're very very excited about that. And then approaching ECE wrap integration, it helps me sell it to other employers when I say that we have even childcare providers, doing apprenticeships. That's one of the things that, businesses themselves, especially towards the trades, they're very standoffish, and they're like, "What? You guys have childcare apprenticeships?" I'm like, "Yeah, we got one for a brewmaster or a tool and die maker." And they're like, "Oh no, we know about the tool and die maker, but brewmaster, that's a good one." So it just helps me sell it and reinforce the fact that there's other things out there that you can do an apprenticeship with.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Lane. Appreciate it. And our final group, room 5, if you want to take a couple minutes to share out.
Sure, I can share for the group. We discussed the navigation process for registering U.S. Department of Labor child care apprenticeship programs and having to revisit paperwork and the lengthy process that is taking additional time and putting up barriers for some of our Michigan Works and other partners. We also talked about additional grant programs that we're all managing because we had 3 Michigan Works present. We had Northeast, Upper Peninsula, and Northwest in room 5. So we're all kind of in, the same boat as far as managing a variety of apprenticeships and programs, along with a number of different grants. So for Northwest, we don't consider the child care apprenticeship any different than our other apprenticeship programs. We have over 80 occupations that we're managing. So our sustainability and retention of the child care apprenticeship will move forward with all of our other programming. And I welcome Ashley and Lauren to talk about what their next steps are.
Perfect. Thank you. Ashley, go ahead. I see you came off unmute. Or Lauren.
I think Evelyn summed it up quite well. We're just, looking at wrapping up the grant, and our employer plans on utilizing the program moving forward. So we will, just work with them to get that going and hopefully build up the program from there.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thanks so much. All right. Well, I appreciate everyone taking the time to share out what your next steps were with your apprenticeship partnership. Very, very valuable to hear and understand. And again, the organizations that you were with, if you do not have them as part of your apprenticeship partnership, please continue making those connections, learning from one another, whether you are continued in a next cycle of funding or not. So as we wrap up this current grant period, ECIC really wants to ensure that you have access to valuable resources as you continue to implement this work. So that being said, I'd like to give a warm welcome to Tracy Carey and Kimberly Ferris, who are joining us from the Early Childhood Workforce Connector. The Early Childhood Workforce Connector brings valuable knowledge and expertise on workforce development and registered apprenticeship, and have many resources that can help be supportive to grantees. So that said, if you could please help me in giving a warm welcome to both Tracy and Kim, I will have them go ahead and take the lead. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Christina. And thank you everyone for being here today and allowing us to present. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen. So let me know when that looks okay. Wonderful. So as Christina mentioned, we are with the Early Childhood Workforce Connector, and today we'd like to talk about the power connecting with the workforce system to support your incredible early childhood education registered apprenticeship programs. So today we're going to talk a little bit about who we are as the Early Childhood Workforce Connector, or ECWC, workforce development boards and how they support early childhood education registered apprenticeship, making the business case and the essential need for early childhood education, the benefits of your programs, and then support and assistance that we can provide to help you along the way. And then we also reserve some time at the end for some questions and answers. You're also welcome to pop those in the chat throughout our presentation. So as Christina mentioned, we are the Early Childhood Workforce Connector, and we're partnered with ECIC to support credentialed career pathways for early childhood educators, specifically for registered apprenticeship. So I'll talk more about who we are, but we are a U.S. DOL industry intermediary for early childhood education registered apprenticeship. In a moment, I'll talk more about what that means, but first I'd like us to introduce ourselves. So Tracy, I'll let you kick us off.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Kimberly. And thanks, Christina, for giving us the opportunity to join folks here today to talk a bit about the work that we're doing at the Early Childhood Workforce Connector and learn a bit more about the work that ECIC and the network of sponsors are doing to support the early childhood education industry across Michigan. So as Kimberly and Christina said, I am Tracy Carey. I'm with Midwest Urban Strategies. We are a consortium of workforce development boards. And I have been engaged in the workforce development industry for many, many years. And I serve as a partner to the Early Childhood Workforce Connector as a senior subject matter expert, bringing workforce development expertise. And Kimberly, you are?
Thank you. I'm Kimberly Ferris, and I'm the Registered Apprenticeship and State Liaison for the Early Childhood Workforce Connector. I draw on my experience as a previous Registered Apprenticeship Program Director. I also worked for the state of Oregon as an Apprenticeship Innovation Specialist for our state apprenticeship agency. So I am bringing that knowledge and expertise to help develop sustainable, innovative, and inclusive registered apprenticeship programs specifically for early childhood education. Thanks, Tracy.
All right. So as I mentioned in the introduction, I am leading an organization called Midwest Urban Strategies, which is a consortium of workforce boards organized across the Midwest Department of Labor Region 5 to really lean into the idea of innovation in the public workforce system. And we look together at the challenges and opportunities that present themselves as we do the work of the public system to support job seekers and employers with the resources and supports they need to achieve their goals. I have about 20 years of experience working in the workforce development space. First as a professional outside of the public system. And then about 10 years ago, I entered the public workforce system, have worked at 2 local workforce development boards, one in Wisconsin, which is where I'm based, and another in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And then have had the opportunity to stand up and lead this organization that brings together those workforce development boards from across the Midwest region. We've been doing this now for the last 5 years that MUS has been formally incorporated. In Michigan, one of the founding members of MUS was the Detroit Employment Solutions Corporation, which is the local organization in Detroit that facilitates the workforce development work in that region, and functions as the extension of the mayor's office on workforce development in Detroit. So that's a little bit of the lay of the land for our relationships in Michigan. And one of the things that we do is bring together those workforce boards to really invest in local areas with resources that can help to drive some of those innovative practices and learning with and from each other. What we've learned is that workforce boards and the organizations that deliver their funded services are a critical part of the visibility and viability of local economies. Those economies rely on a strong network of accessible, high-quality childcare programs that are available to working parents so they can work without worry about their children's well-being. And we are going to walk through just how important the public workforce system is to viable childcare ecosystems in your local areas throughout this presentation. And as we do so, we want to make sure that we're engaging with you. So we don't want to just talk at you, we want to talk with you. So please feel free to share any questions or thoughts or ideas that you have in the chat. We will post specific questions we'd like you to respond to in the chat as well. So please use that as an opportunity to communicate together here as we move along. To get started, because we don't know you, I would ask if you wouldn't mind to put your name and where the name of the organization that you represent in the chat so we can get going. I'll pause for a second as folks kind of jump in to do that. And as we're moving along here with the with getting some folks to put their information in the chat, if you're willing to do so, thank you. I appreciate that, you guys. We're going to move into a brief poll to talk about and level set a bit about how you are using the resources of the public workforce system to really support the program in ECE that you're sponsoring, the registered apprenticeship program that you're sponsoring and holding up in your local area. So we're going to launch the poll. I think we're going to get the poll launched. Is that right, Christina? Thank you. So if you could go ahead and just respond here. We're curious about how you're using co-enrollment as a way to support your apprentices and your and their employers in the early childhood education space. We'll give you folks a few moments here to respond to the poll. And folks can continue to put their information into the chat. And Christina, I'm going to count on you to have some idea about when we should close the poll. I want to give people adequate time.
Yep, we're at about 85% who have responded to it.
Awesome. Why don't we go ahead and just close it out and we'll see where we ended up.
Perfect.
Awesome. So looks like folks know what co-enrollment is for the most part. And they're either exploring or currently using co-enrollment. That's fantastic. I'm so glad to see that. That's really great news. All right, good. On to a little bit more level setting. So as I understood it, this is a bit of a mixed group. It's so that we have some Michigan Works agencies represented in the room. And I heard some of your feedback about how you are integrating the early childhood education registered apprenticeship program into the rest of the work that you do around registered apprenticeship. That's fantastic. And I also understand that there are some folks in the room who represent organizations within the ecosystem of the Michigan Works local areas. And so in order to make sure that we're all starting from the same place, I just wanted to level set with a little bit of information that I think is important. So the first thing that I wanted to just clarify is that workforce development boards are the local entity responsible for coordinating services and funding through the Workforce Innovation and Opportunities Act of 2014. We also call it WIOA. Some people refer to it as WIOA, but that is the foundational law that governs the work that we are engaged in. WIOA made some really significant changes to how our systems operated. And some of those changes included things like a dual customer approach, which means we focus both on job seekers and employers. That is fundamentally different than how we approach the work under the former law, the Workforce Investment Act. Another thing that WIOA brought forward and really codified was the use of registered apprenticeship as a tool in how we serve those dual customers. And so there is a TEAGL that sort of lays out how to use registered apprenticeship and what the do's and don'ts are. I'm sure all of you know what it is, but if somebody can pop that into the chat just so that you have access to it, that would be fantastic in the event that you are not familiar with that TEAGL. A TEAGL is just a training and employment guidance letter, which the Department of Labor puts out to clarify what the rules and regulations are around any part of the administration of the law. So what does all of this mean for us? What it means is that as local workforce boards, we are able to make the strategic investments that are necessary in workers and employers in industries that matter to our local economy. And we know that prior to COVID, the ECE industry was not really considered a driver industry. Most boards and states were not willing to invest because the wages were low and the churn rate was high. But COVID revealed two really important things. First, it showed how fragile the childcare system is. And second, it showed us how critical it is. We learned that childcare is one of the backbones to all other industries. What we believe here at ECWC is that the early childhood education workers are the workforce behind the workforce. And without an adequate supply of qualified, prepared ECE workers, the rest of the workforce who have children would find it difficult to remain fully employed. There's lots of good data that we're going to go through as we move along in this conversation. But as we move forward, I want us to be thinking about why co-enrollment would matter in this conversation and how we might use co-enrollment as a way to, over the long term, continue to support the registered apprenticeship programs that you all are involved in sponsoring today. Next slide. So, as a workforce board, we have the opportunity and responsibility to develop a plan that details how we're going to invest our WIOA resources. And that local plan clarifies the local labor market information, driver industries, local demographics of the community. I'm curious how many of you have childcare investments as part of your local strategy. Childcare providers often don't know about the public workforce system or how it can help them. What are your strategies for reaching out to those providers to educate them about our system and how it can help them build their talent pipeline? How are you currently writing job training contracts with your ECE registered apprenticeship employers? Are you taking advantage of those on-the-job learning investments that we can make as a system? And if you are, would you share some of those ways in which you're currently engaged in working with those employers to invest in that on-the-job learning? If you have a specific strategy that you've used with those on-the-job learning contracts, it would be great if you could share that in the chat. I'm also curious how else you're working with those early childhood education employers in your local area. And what are some of the challenges that you've experienced and the struggles that you've encountered as you've worked to meet their needs? If there's anything in particular that comes to mind, please again, share that in the chat. And I know as a collaborative that's been working together over the past year or two, you guys have been sharing these challenges together for quite some time. We are here to continue to bring support if that's something that is of value to you. And so our ability to support you is made easier when we understand what some of the challenges are. So if you're willing to share, that would be great. Next slide, please. So as you continue to build that base of knowledge that you've begun here in this sort of opening phase of your sponsorship of early childhood education registered apprenticeship programs, we're excited about the opportunity to continue to build those relationships and support you as you look to continue serving this really important and critical part of our economy. One of the things that we know is that hearing specifically from those employers and those apprentices is a really important way for us to understand where the gaps remain and how we can continue to fill those gaps. And so I just really encourage us to have that open dialogue with employers and with our apprentices so that we are able to adjust and respond accordingly. Have you had the opportunity to date to hear from those apprentices about their experiences in the childcare industry and the process they've gone through in the apprenticeship program? How are you building storytelling into your administration of the registered apprenticeship program and then using that as a way to improve the services that you're bringing to those apprentices and their employers? These are questions that are worth exploring, and they are really necessary and important parts of helping to build the system as we move forward. The stories speak to the benefit of your early childhood education registered apprenticeship program. And I'm going to hand it over to Kimberly so that we can take a moment to hear more about the benefits of early childhood education registered apprenticeship.
Thank you, Tracy. And I encourage everyone, you can keep popping those in the chat. Those are some really thoughtful questions. Right now, what I'd like to do is just give you some talking points for when you're talking to early childhood education employers and talk about the benefits of joining the program and how expressing the benefits of registered apprenticeship can be a recruitment strategy for you as the program sponsor. So the benefit of registered apprenticeship for early childhood employers is it helps tap into recruitment of diverse and skilled employees. It helps improve employee retention. The data from US DOL right now is that 90% of apprentices remain with their host employer after completing a registered apprenticeship program. Those employers also have access to specific federal and state funding that is for registered apprenticeship, as well as benefiting from the customized professional learning and workforce training that they can build into their program model. Registered apprenticeship is also a strategy to increase access to high quality childcare. Through registered apprenticeship, the early childhood education workforce has high quality professional development that really uplifts the ECE workforce by adding qualified teachers to the classroom, which in turn increases access to high quality childcare. The progressive wages guaranteed through registered apprenticeship helps decrease teacher turnover. And as I just mentioned, 90% of apprentices remain with their host employer. So this leads to decreased turnover and provides a stable workforce and environment to support young learners. The benefits of registered apprenticeship for the apprentice is they benefit from paid employment with progressive wages. It is an earn while you learn model. There's coaching and mentorship involved with registered apprenticeship. And apprentices also benefit from enhanced knowledge, skills, and competencies, as well as receiving nationally recognized credentials. That US DOL certificate does not expire and is nationally recognized. They also benefit from sustainable career pathways within early childhood education. So as we know, there are a variety of career opportunities within early childhood education. We like to use this tree graphic to help show that someone could start with an entry-level position, say a substitute teacher, and through furthered education and experience within their registered apprenticeship program, they could lead to a career as a lead teacher or even a curriculum developer. Registered apprenticeship is just one way that someone could move up the tree. Early childhood education registered apprenticeship programs offer multiple entry points and pathways to these sustainable careers. You can see we started our tree down there at the bottom, perhaps with a child development associate or another ECE credential. And through a continued education and on-the-job learning, they could lead to an academic degree, such as an associate's or bachelor's. We have the graduate degree on there in gray. We don't have any programs utilizing that yet, but we could see that as a possibility in the structure of registered apprenticeship. So registered apprenticeship really is used to strengthen that talent pipeline into early childhood education and help lead to diverse and rewarding careers within the field. So next, we want to share with you why investing in early childhood education for the employers is so essential. So we want to share a few concrete examples about childcare apprenticeship programs that are anchored and supported by their local workforce development boards. Give you an idea of some national movements to increase investments in early childhood education in order to ensure that all workers have the care they need to sustain employment. Tracy?
Trying to find the mute button here. Thanks, Kimberly. Yes, so there was a study published by Ready Nation that looked at the impact that our economies have experienced as a result of inadequate and uneven access to childcare. And it really points out the fact that childcare is really an economic imperative for our communities to be as fully vibrant as they have the potential to be. They must have quality, accessible, available childcare. And that is all predicated on the available supply of talent that can work in those classrooms and keep those doors open. And so we know that limited access to childcare really does result in that productivity problem. And some of the data here tells us that families lose, and these are annual numbers, families lose on average $5,500 per working parent in lost earnings when they need to take time looking for work as a consequence of inadequate childcare access. That translates to businesses losing on average $1,640 per working parent in terms of their extra costs and the burden of continuing to have to hire. We hear it from our employers all the time about the impact that access to childcare has on their workforce. And there are real costs about onboarding and hiring that employers have to shoulder. And so solving this childcare problem is one of those ways that we're able to bring greater benefit to not just the childcare industry, but to the broader set of industries we serve as well. And then we also get to bring some solutions to our communities as a whole, because taxpayers also lose when childcare isn't accessible. And that's to the tune of $21 billion a year lost in lower income taxes and sales tax revenue, because those parents are not working and not able to help to support that local tax base. So we know it's a problem. We know that for families, access to care, we've seen it from most of our employers that we work with, that is a problem that they see within their employee workplace. And so that's why we really made the decision to dig in here to childcare as one of those challenges, along with transportation and a few key others that are consistently existing across all of our local workforce areas. And so we have a specific example from the state of Missouri that I want to talk a little bit more about. And then Kimberly will also share some information about the state of Oregon and some work that's been done there in their local public workforce system to begin to address this issue. So we're looking at Missouri as a comparable state. Missouri is a federal system state, as Michigan is. And so it makes sense to take a look at what happens with the Office of Apprenticeship at the state level. In Missouri, the Office of Apprenticeship worked with the State Department of Workforce Development to develop a registered apprenticeship program that could be rolled out across the state. Missouri did not have an organization like ECIC to support that initiative. So instead, they relied on one of their workforce boards, the Full Employment Council in Kansas City, to lead those efforts. The Full Employment Council had already begun to do some work around the early childhood education issue in their community. They developed a community benefit agreement in response to some of the challenges that their Port Authority was having in some construction projects that were occurring in Kansas City. They were having trouble with second and third shift workers, and so they developed a childcare fund that was contributed to in order to hold slots for second and third shift workers. So they had some experience, and it made sense for them to lead these efforts. And so Full Employment Council got busy recruiting local childcare employers who were interested in participating in a registered apprenticeship program. And they acted as the sponsor, and they have to date signed on 23 employers who are all actively engaged in hosting registered apprentices. One of those employers, the Emmanuel Family and Child Development Center, has really seen major transformation in their ability to adequately train and support their team members. They've seen a significant reduction in their turnover. And as a result of the registered apprenticeship program in total, the employers throughout their region have seen greater impact to accessible childcare as a consequence of these childcare centers having a more reliable mechanism, i.e. apprenticeship, to onboard, train, and advance their workforce. And so the Full Employment Council is able to engage those employers and provide on-the-job learning contracts that allows them to support the mentoring costs that those employers are bearing as they're working to build their pipeline of apprentices that are coming into their programs. They're also able to use their supportive services as a mechanism to bring the resources that are necessary for those workers. They extended, Full Employment Council did, the Registered Apprenticeship Program to the St. Louis region. And there in St. Louis, the YWCA is the Head Start agency, and they have developed a network of over 100 childcare providers that they're working with. And those childcare providers are now also adopting the Registered Apprenticeship Program model as a way to build their talent pipeline. And so this is becoming a viable way for those small childcare employers to build their team of educators and to ensure that those folks who are leading those classrooms and teaching the littlest of our children, that they have the necessary skills and training, and that those employers have the resources they need to ensure that. It is in its early stages, as is true with most registered apprenticeship in early childhood education, but it definitely shows promise. And those employers who are leading these apprenticeship programs within their organizations are seeing real results as a consequence of it. So Missouri is seeing great success in fully integrating the Child Care Registered Apprenticeship Program as a part of their delivery mechanism using WIOA resources. And there's been similar outcomes in the state of Oregon, and I'll let Kimberly speak to that as well.
Thank you, Tracy. I think those are really great examples, and I hope, you know, through that conversation, some ideas were sparked for how you can implement something similar. But what I'd like to do is talk about the power of those collaborative relationships. So I want to share a few strategies that possibly you could adapt to your program. So the first one is connecting with economic and workforce development organizations such as Chamber of Commerce, workforce development boards, economic development associations, and how you can also partner with ECE organizations such as your local AEYC or Association for the Education of Young Children, YWCA, as Tracy just mentioned, as well as CCR&R, and I know we have a couple in the room here today. But how those collaborations can enhance our ability to communicate the value of early childhood education to the workforce system. So as an example, in my home state of Oregon, we have a statewide workforce partnership, and that facilitates an ad hoc committee to discuss innovative solutions to the childcare crisis that we're experiencing here. And some of those innovations include supporting for early childhood education registered apprenticeship programs. This group also comes together for cohesive messaging and advocacy to the legislature, as well as just a time to talk about what's happening in our regions and how we can come together. So the Oregon Child Care Work Group, we really demonstrate the power of these partnerships in addressing childcare challenges by leveraging resources and support from the workforce system, and how we can fill in the gaps to support Michigan families and the community. So this is a reciprocal relationship through these partnerships where early childhood entities become aware of and how to tap into the resources and support from the workforce system. So next, I just wanted to close out by sharing a little bit more on who we are and how we're partnering with ECIC to support this effort. So we are a recently funded early childhood education registered apprenticeship industry intermediary working as the early childhood workforce connector. We promote developing, launching, and expanding registered apprenticeship programs to support and sustain a well-compensated, well-qualified, diverse, and inclusive early childhood education workforce. We are doing that through USDOL as an industry intermediary. And that means we support the development of new registered apprenticeship programs as well as expansion. And we are doing this work specifically for early childhood education. The support and assistance that we provide is really based on the needs of our partner. So we offer a comprehensive range of support from registered apprenticeship program development or expansion. We can help with education and outreach, curriculum development, apprentice recruitment strategies, as well as accessing and utilizing funding streams to support your apprenticeship program. And all of this comes at no cost. We are funded by USDOL to do this work and to support the development of new registered apprenticeship programs or the expansion of existing programs. Additionally, we do have an incentive fund. We can talk about that more for anyone who'd like to learn, but we do have that funding available. It cannot be used for wages, but it can be used for other things such as marketing material, curriculum development, disability accommodations or reasonable accommodation requests, mentorship training, or translation services. So we are in collaboration with WRMA, LPE Associates, as well as Midwest Urban Strategies. We have collaborative partners in the Council for Professional Recognition, which is the administrator of the CDA, as well as the Kentucky Governor's Office of Early Childhood Education, which currently has 3 registered apprenticeship programs in early childhood education. Not listed here, but we also have partnerships with the Preschool Development Grant Birth Through 5 Technical Assistance Center, National League of Cities, multiple community colleges, and we're talking to other industry employers like manufacturing, construction, and healthcare, and how we can support diverse working hours through childcare needs. So that is who the ECWC is. Next, I'd like to open it up for questions and see where we're at. There we go. There's our contact information as well. I'm also noticing I wasn't able to pop links in the chat while I was screen sharing, so I'm going to do that now. All right, what questions do you have for us? Oh, perfect. Thank you, Nicole. I'll start with this then. I noticed when we did the initial poll for those, when we asked about co-enrollment, there were about 12% that said that they weren't sure what co-enrollment was. That 12%, do you feel like you understand what it is? Are there further questions we can answer on that? How do we feel about co-enrollment?
I see a few questions coming into the chat here, Kimberly. Before we sort of jump into answering those, I think it's a fair question. So co-enrollment is what it sounds like. So those of us who are managing programs through WIOA will speak about co-enrollment. And so it is the enrollment into 2 programs or using multiple funding sources or enrolling into WIOA for the purposes of funding the various needs that an apprentice may have. So in this case, you guys already have funding through ECIC. You might also enroll in WIOA to cover all of the various needs that an apprentice may have. And I see a thumbs up on that. So that's great. Thank you for that.
Yeah, so some of the ways that funding can be used for, I've seen in the past it used for transportation assistance, like gas cards or bus passes. It could be used for technology assistance, like access to internet, using a hotspot or a laptop. I've also seen it used for things like when an apprentice can't pay their electric bill, how funding can be used to support them just meeting those life needs that come up as a person. It could also be definitely used for childcare. So that could be vouchers or a subsidy or, a negotiation with a childcare provider. I've also seen it used for car repairs before in the past. So that's just a couple ideas for how co-enrollment, that funding through WIO can be used to support an apprentice.
It also can be used for things like the related technical instruction. So, and there's a variety of ways that could be utilized. It is braided funding. Nicole, thank you. And so the incentive funds, how does that work? Do you want to talk a little bit about that, Kimberly?
Yeah, so we are a U.S. DOL funded industry intermediary. And with that, we do have funding through U.S. DOL that we can use to support our partners. That funding is to help offset the cost of either program development or expansion needs. Our funding is $1,000 per new apprentice registered into the program, with a cap of up to $40,000. And so with that, I know some of you have multiple employers that you're working with and in a pretty large apprentice reach. And so it can be either administered to the sponsor of the registered apprenticeship program or to those employers. So we can help talk with you about which would be the best option, because we want to give the most money that we can to support your apprentices. As I mentioned, it can't be used for wages, but we do have programs that are using it for printing marketing materials or doing marketing like radio ads or TV ads or Spotify ads, curriculum development, disability accommodations. So if there's an apprentice that has perhaps a visual impairment, looking at getting those textbooks in an audio format or increasing font size so the apprentice can read the textbook or take the test as needed. Mentorship training and professional development is another way that it can be used, as well as translation services. So actually getting the curriculum or those flyers translated into a language that's going to meet the community in which they're serving.
So there was a question posted about using the incentive funds to provide wraparound services to folks. Is that allowable?
Yeah, absolutely. So that would be some of those support and assistance to apprentices. It just can't be used for wages. So with that, we do have somebody on our team that can help walk you through that incentive fund application process, what the technical assistance is that we could provide along the way. All that to say, it's not applying for it and not knowing what's happening. We're there with you through that application and implementation process, as well as to brainstorm how you can best use those funding options. So we're there with that. And I'll include our incentive fund overview in my follow-up email to Nicole and Christina. If you want to attach that to an email to the group, we're happy to send that. I'm also going to post our website in the chat here, and then I'm going to look through and see what other links I can provide for you as well.
I think one of the important things to just point out is that we are available to walk alongside you and support you in the not just the development of an apprenticeship program, because most of you have already gone through that process, but also in the expansion of that program. So if there are needs to grow the number of apprentices that you are bringing in, if your employers are struggling to find new workers, we're happy to provide some consultation and support around that. There are a variety of ways in which we can support the work that you're looking to do. And so we're happy to help in any way that we're able to.
I'm happy to share my experience with you, Kimberly, if
yeah.
So I've been working with Kimberly, and I don't know what I would have done without you. So when I first started working with her, I needed help with my affirmative action plan. I probably would have sat at my desk and cried if it weren't for them. They were so helpful and so informative, and just the support that you've provided along the way, amazing. Thank you. I just appreciate everything you've done.
Oh, thank you, Carla. So we're here to make the registered apprenticeship process easier. So things like affirmative action work plans, connecting with the workforce system, negotiating those articulation agreements. We have a team of subject matter experts that are here to support. Carla, thank you so much for your kind words. Yeah, so my experiences as a previous program director, so doing everything from processing applications to doing compliance reviews to taking many phone calls from apprentices and applicants. Tracy brings a wealth of experience on the workforce system side. We have people on our team that have extensive experience in ECE, being ECE educators themselves, to doing policy for early childhood education and as well as higher education. So we kind of bring all that knowledge together to just help support the development of new programs, the expansion of existing programs, and ultimately make registered apprenticeship easier for everyone involved. I can add the link. Yeah, the link for the incentive fund, it's on our website. I'll include our one pager after that as well. I think it's on the resources page. Here we go. Also on that resources page, we have recordings to past webinars that we've done. I'm not sure if anyone follows the Council for Professional Recognition webinar series, but we've been hosting with them on a variety of topics specifically for registered apprenticeship early childhood education. We've also had a couple webinars with MUS talking about this subject as well. So those are also on the resource page to check out.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, both Tracy and Kimberly. Carla, for sharing your experience working with ECWC. Obviously, everything that's been shared here, we will be sending in a follow-up as well following this session today. So we'll be sure to share all of those links, the incentive information that Kimberly was just talking about. And of course, Tracy, thank you for putting that email address in there too. So if anybody has any questions or needs further assistance, to reach out directly there. I want to be mindful of time. We do have just a few minutes left. So thank you again, Tracy and Kimberly, for presenting and bringing your expertise and knowledge to the group today. I'm going to have Nicole, as usual, post our post-learning survey into the chat. Before you guys jump off, if you could just leave your feedback for us. Again, we look at these very closely and try to take everything into consideration of what's being shared, what you want to hear more about. A couple of quick reminders. We have our monthly office hours. They're optional, but they're taking place next Tuesday, June 25th at 1 o'clock. We will still be having our friends at Bank Street join there, but you are welcome to bring any questions to the table at that time. We also have the continuation of June progress meetings. So thank you to those who have already participated and talked deeply en route with us about spending and all the questions surrounding. We'll be continuing with those. And then, crazy as it seems, but we have our last learning community taking place scheduled in July. So that'll be the last one for both Scale Up and Design currently during this grant period. So that is scheduled right now for Thursday, July 18th, again at 1 o'clock. So we'll be sharing some great information at that time just to kind of wrap up these two grants that we've been currently working with you guys on. So that being said, if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask now. Otherwise, as always, you can always reach out to our team if you need to schedule some one-on-one time to further discuss anything prior to your progress meeting or just anything in general that you need further support on. Thank you so much, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.